And this is a Fox News alert. We are looking at pictures, new images that have been released by U.S. senior intelligence officials of Osama bin Laden, and it shows him in a very different light than what many people would have anticipated him to look like, where he dyed his beard on some occasions, and he was watching himself on television on Al Jazeera. Our Jennifer Griffin is live at the Pentagon with more details about what one U.S. senior intelligence official talked about in releasing these 5 short video clips released about Osama bin Laden's and his obsession, obviously, with himself, apparently. Jennifer?
Well, it's very clear that the reason they held this 40-minute intelligence briefing here at the Pentagon today was to lay to rest once and for all the idea that it may not have been bin Laden that they got. They provided us with 5 key points as to how they knew it was bin Laden. Number 1, they said that his wife identified him by name, Osama bin Laden. They also had facial recognition that was basically photographs taken at the scene of bin Laden were compared to known photographs of him. They check the size and shape of his ears, the space between his eyes, the nose. This is the equivalent of a fingerprint. They did that, and they were within 95% certain that this was bin Laden. Thirdly, they also had DNA evidence taken from bin Laden, compared at DOD and CIA facilities to DNA that had been collected from, we know from previous sources, from the mother and 3 sons of bin Laden. We were only told today that it was from extended family members. At that point, the intelligence briefer said that there was a 1 in 11.8 quadrillion chance that this was not bin Laden, to which the room full of reporters burst into laughter. Fifth, they found personal letters with bin Laden's signature on them at the compound. That was another piece of evidence. And finally, you have the statement that was released yesterday by al-Qaeda through its own known networks, dated May 3rd, I believe, that talks about bin Laden's killing in Pakistan. This intelligence briefer noted that it is unusual for them to have mentioned that bin Laden was in Pakistan. In previous statements that they had released, they had never mentioned that he was in Pakistan. So these were the 5 principal means through which they identified bin Laden. We also are knowing from other sources, not from the briefing today. It was reported in the, by Bob Woodward in the Washington Post this morning, but we've also confirmed with other sources that one of the things that the Navy SEALs did not have on them when they, after he was killed and they were trying to they were looking at the body and taking certain measurements, was a tape measure. They didn't have a tape measure, and so one of the SEALs reportedly lay down next to bin Laden so they could get a sense of the height based on the height that they knew bin Laden was. And so there are some somewhat funny details that are coming out about this, about how they identified bin Laden. But they're hoping by releasing these videos that were captured at the compound and these other means explaining how they knew it was him, that it will put to rest any conspiracy theories that he somehow is not dead. The other interesting thing, if you look at the video of him watching himself on TV, there are a few things that struck me. First of all, the briefer himself would not say whether they thought this was a taped Al Jazeera recording or it was live, but it looks like the way bin Laden is holding the remote, and it clearly he was someone who was in control of the remote. It looked like there was a satellite TV box next to it. There was he kept flipping between images of himself, and then you see a menu for a satellite TV, and you see that he's on Al Jazeera, and you see that his images are being broadcast on Al Jazeera because you see the symbol for Al Jazeera down in the right-hand corner. You see also some images flash up of President Obama wearing a tuxedo. He goes back to the menu. You see Dianne Feinstein, Senator Dianne Feinstein, addressing something. That probably is the way in which intelligence officials narrowed down the time frame in which they think at least one of these videos was made, which they're telling us was in the October-November time frame of last year.
Let me ask you real quickly about that. You mentioned Senator Dianne Feinstein. You mentioned the President of the United States, Barack Obama, in a tuxedo. Was that some indication that perhaps they might have been in the crosshairs of Osama bin Laden, that he might have had some plan about that?
I don't think that we could conclude that from this. I simply think he was watching what appears to be a live feed from Al Jazeera. It was a news piece, and in that piece, or within the newscast, there were stories about whatever it was that President Obama was doing at that time, and what was happening. You see a flash to the what appears to be the Senate floor, and that's where you see the picture. So, but at that moment, he goes back to the menu. It's clearly he is obsessed with his own image. And the other interesting point is he is sitting on the floor, rocking back and forwards in what appears to be a cold room. He has a blanket over his shoulders. He has a black cap on, and he is gesturing to the person, put the camera on me. He looks like a very small man in this. And the other thing is, in the other videos, you notice that there's some lighting technical difficulties. I think we now know where the Asahab studios, that's the Al-Qaeda video studios, are. It was in this compound. It's clear from one of the videos there's an armoire that this senior intelligence official told us today was an armoire that they saw in the compound. So the video, that video in particular, appears to have been made inside this compound.
Yeah, and Jennifer, let me just point out real quickly the reason why we are not showing the video but the stills instead. That's because it's our policy at Fox News to only show the still photos, because we will not show any video or audio propaganda from terrorists. And I think people can certainly reasonably understand why we have chosen just to show the still photos of Osama bin Laden leading up to his last day here on Earth. But I wanted to get back to a point here. His compound there was still an active command center for Al-Qaeda. Is that correct?
It's very clear from the evidence that they have, according to this senior intelligence official, the reams of evidence that they gathered up on those thumb drives, hard drives, mobile phones, and personal letters of bin Laden, that this was an active operational leader of Al-Qaeda. This was not a figurehead that was hiding off somewhere, disconnected from his community. And so that is one thing they take away from this. The other thing that was interesting to note, it was not mentioned by the intelligence briefer, but I just noticed in looking at the video, on the floor with bin Laden was a calculator. It looked like one of those sort of money changing or you know, a calculator that you would do with a roll of paper attached to it. So somebody was doing some calculating in that room where bin Laden was sitting as he was watching himself on TV with the remote control clicker.
The senior intelligence official, and by the way, that's a very interesting point about the calculations, but we understand through the senior intelligence official, Jennifer, that he was also calculating more strikes against the United States and other Western targets. Can you tell us what kind of targets he may have been looking at?
Well, certainly this intelligence briefer would not go further than to say that they did find evidence that transportation was still of interest to the bin Laden network, and we've reported in recent days about how they had found evidence of an aspirational plan on September 11th of this year, which would be the 10th anniversary of September 11th, to target trains as a mode of transportation. So it's clear that there were still active plots in the works, and we're not, just because bin Laden is dead, I mean, we've been told repeatedly by intelligence officials, it's not to say that some of these plans may not be in the works. So this is a time to be extremely vigilant, we're told by the intelligence community, and there are task force set up. They told us today about the task force set up to go through the reams of material on the hard drives and thumb drives and the papers that they gathered. They're saying this is the largest haul of intelligence material ever from a terrorist. You know, and so as they go through this, we're going to know more, but they may not share it with us either. So this is, it was clear from this briefing today they wanted to put to rest once and for all that there was any doubt in their minds that they got Osama bin Laden.
Certainly, with Al-Qaeda confirming that Osama bin Laden was dead and then vowing to retaliate and get revenge, certainly one can understand why intelligence officials are concerned about what's going to happen in the coming days, weeks, and months. And the president himself, on the night that he announced that Osama bin Laden had been killed, went on to say that he was very concerned about moving forward and that we should remain very vigilant about this, because he mentioned that Al-Qaeda would try to strike at us again, but they had removed, they had cut off the head of the snake. Having said that, is there any indication from the senior intelligence official who might be coming in to take over that spot?
Well, no, he would not say. The two names that are out there, obviously, are the presumed number 2 of al-Qaeda, that reported for years as the number 2, Ayman al-Zawahiri, who is the Egyptian who has been close to bin Laden for many years. He was more of a philosophical character. But this intelligence official today threw out there that they have evidence that members of the al-Qaeda network are not all that thrilled with Zawahiri, and that he is seen as being a bit of a control freak, controlling, that he is a micromanager, and that he is not viewed by members of al-Qaeda as being very charismatic. The other name out there is the American-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, who is presumed to be in Yemen. We have confirmed that there was a drone strike, a drone strike on Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen in the last 24 hours. They missed. That's been confirmed from U.S. officials and Yemeni sources. So I think all eyes right now are on, first of all, is there any intelligence that can lead them to Zawahiri? He still remains a threat out there, even if there are divisions within the al-Qaeda organization about him and the way he's viewed by the members of al-Qaeda. But also Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen is largely viewed as one of the largest threats because of his connections to the United States. He's American-born, and he's the one who sent a number of Americans to strike within the United States.
You know, Jennifer, we thank you so much for bringing us up to date on this briefing by a senior intelligence official. We thank you so much for sharing that with us. We have a lot more to talk about, but Jennifer Griffin, keep us up to date should anything else develop. Jane?
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back,